No, that is good. And I'd love to get into that a little bit more detail a little bit later. So if I'm trying to understand the way you see the world is this virus breaks out in Wuhan, we start getting information, and there's a few people at the top that kind of have a vested interest in things either remaining the same or a certain narrative just staying consistent. And maybe that's people at the WHO or the CDC or someone like Fauci who's next to Trump. And they just kind of say, all right, we're going to go along with this narrative. And when a few politicians get involved, which ultimately they kind of want to protect their job, and they have to trust the scientists, they also don't want to make a major mistake. You're saying this just kind of got forced through until everyone accepted it. Then the fear came in, and then people would do anyone said. Am I far off with kind of getting the Dolores concept of what happened?
I suppose the Dolores concept, why I'm speaking up, is that what's not really highlighted enough is that if you eat well and you avoid stress and you boost your immune system, you actually won't be sick from a lot of viruses. So that's a very different narrative. So it turns out that historically, over more than 100 years, there were two schools of thought, the germ theory and the terrain theory, and they were done by Pasteur and Belchamp. And one of the theories would be, for me, the Belchamp theory would be that if you are well and not stressed, and you have good nutrients and good food, you can fight off any virus. Your immune system is working. And therefore, viruses are not something to be afraid of. But nobody really makes any money out of that, because you're talking about healthy food, no stress, and nutrition, which is really my message and a lot of the people. But unfortunately, for the last 100 years or so, the Pasteur germ theory around viruses and infection, where they have war-like analogies, and it's an outbreak, and you need to get antibiotics to defend yourself against it, as if you don't have a natural immune system. That is the kind of education and narrative that doctors have been taught in medical schools, and that the only way to recover from these viruses or infections is through antibiotics or vaccines. And so what really we have is a 100-year discussion about how is best to keep healthy. And this has really come head on with the coronavirus, because if the vaccine is the only cure, then you have to lock down the country until the vaccine comes. You don't really have any way that you yourself can prevent yourself getting sick. And then you have to shield yourself from the virus by wearing masks, and you have to social distance, and you have to keep children from playing with each other, and you have to prevent, football games and concerts. So that's a very consistent narrative if you want to say that health comes out of a vaccine and we have to lock down. And why it's difficult for people like me and others to even engage with people who have been taught that in the medical schools for maybe 2 or 3 generations is they haven't been taught about the immune system, and that we evolved with these viruses and bacteria. And if we have a healthy immune system, we don't need anything else.
Is that part of the reason? I mean, is the medical system or the medical education system, is that because a lot of that is paid for by studies funded by pharmaceutical companies? Or is it just because 100 years ago, we got into this narrative of, like you said, we're at war and you have to fortify your immune system? And I mean, what is it? What created this status quo where if you don't get a pill when you go to your doctor, you feel like you got a raw deal, right? If you go to your doctor like a year ago before coronavirus and you said, oh, I'm feeling sick, and they'd be like, well, go home, eat healthy and sleep, and you'll be okay in about 10 days. You feel like, wait a second, where's my antibiotics? Where's my this? Where's my that? I mean, how did we all get into this narrative?
So you can actually trace the narrative by the Rockefeller Foundation, who set up a series of medical schools. And then they also set up the licensing of medical doctors across America and the world. And there was an awful lot of traditional healing in food, and in complex things about trying to detoxify the body and clean water and reduce stress. And so with the Rockefeller Foundation setting up medical schools and the licensing of the medical profession through those schools, they have more or less taken the Pasteur germ theory of the immune system and health, and that you can only really be healthy if you get prescribed a drug. And also now it has evolved in the last 50 years about vaccines. So they have also undermined the kind of connection between food and vitamins and nutrients in food, which is, there were like 10 Nobel Prizes in the 50s, 60s, and 70s for the discovery of vitamins like vitamin D and C. And there was a lot of clinical trials and results to show that actually you can really recover people from even complex issues like sepsis or autoimmune disorders by giving high dose of vitamins and nutrients. And also a lot of ill health. We can even see now, if you look at the Amish population, where they don't have the same interaction with medical schools, that there's a lot of, we'll say, metabolic syndrome and autoimmune diseases and cancer and neurocognitive decline issues and Alzheimer's that they do not have. So that's almost, there's 70,000 people there. That's like a control population for people who are eating very healthily and looking after their health and their immune system, and they are in general healthy. So a lot of the issues coronavirus is bringing up, and which Dr. Judy Mikovich and Dr. Sherry Tenpenny and Dr. Buttar that you've interviewed are highlighting, is that I think we're actually on a dawn of health. Because if this message gets through, you can actually recover people from a lot of current chronic illnesses by really looking at their nutrients and their balances of vitamins, and, you know, avoid a lot of the overprescription of drugs that often have associated adverse events. And also there are issues with the vaccines, that they may be made with tissues like from dog or from monkey, you know, simian viruses that actually are known to have oncogenes that can cause specific cancers or also irritate the immune system and cause autoimmune diseases. So I think what's the media battle that's going on is actually a battle around the health of the planet, and that there are two different views, and one of them makes very little money. So I actually, in my political kind of point of view, would be thinking we actually need a new profession of health, you know, where people would pay into a system where they would not have any disease and not have any symptoms. And it might involve good nutrition and looking at their vitamin and nutrient status to be healthy.